The story in this week's episode is interesting from a number of different perspectives, but not because it provides a lot of evidence for extraterrestrial contact. No, the evidence in this story is rather thin. So what makes this story worth telling? Well, let me explain. Despite the fact that it is just an old man's memories of strange events that he experienced as an 8-year-old boy during some summers in the 1950s, and that the only person who has been able to verify certain things in his story is his own mother. Representatives of the notoriously serious organization UFO Sweden, which he contacted in 2015, found him so credible that they decided to do quite extensive field investigations. Being perceived as credible does not mean that something is true, but it does raise questions that even the most ardent skeptic should consider. The people who had the opportunity to hear the man talk about what happened to him were convinced that he was not lying, and they were able to confirm several details with his elderly mother. They concluded that he was simply telling them what he remembered, which again does not mean that what he remembered actually happened. Either he made it all up for some unclear motive, perhaps attention, in which case he also implicated his mother, or he was suffering from a temporary delusion, or he had created false memories for some reason, which again would mean that he persuaded his mother to vouch for the authenticity of his stories. Then, of course, there is the possibility that what he claims happened did happen. Yes, this story is interesting from several perspectives, but anyone expecting proof will be disappointed. But that is why this channel exists, to tell things that would not otherwise be told. And as always, it is entirely up to you to decide what you believe to be true or not. In the late 1950s, Bo Hallberg was 8 years old. One summer morning, he walked down to the lake, which was about 100 meters from his house. He walked through the cow pasture next to the family farm and heard what he describes as metal tapping coming from further down the pasture, closer to the lake. Like most children, Bo was a curious boy and wanted to investigate where the sound was coming from. He thought the whole thing was strange because there were never any people at that part of the lake. He passed through a small grove of trees in the pasture and came out into a more open area. At the bottom of a slope, by a heap of stones at the far end of the field, he saw something strange. Bo says it looked like a giant hubcap lying there. The saucer-shaped object had a dome on both the top and bottom. He soon realized that it was not only the object that was strange. Bo says, "I ducked a little, and then I saw that there were some strange people there. One was standing by the heap of stones, and another was doing something in the heap. Next to them, there were 4 more figures who instead were cutting some bushes. I thought they looked strange because they were quite small with pointy heads. They were people who were much shorter than we are and didn't look like us either." Bo's curiosity grew. He took a few steps closer, and one of the figures saw him. The figure quickly held up one hand in front of him and gestured a stop sign. Despite this, Bo continued to take a few more steps towards the figure, who then took an instrument from his belt at his waist and aimed it. Shortly afterwards, some kind of projectile was fired at him. It hit me in the stomach on the right side. It was some kind of arrow, so I pulled it out and threw it to the side, and then I collapsed. Bo has vague memories of what happened next. He remembers that 3 figures came walking towards him. They seemed to be looking for the projectile, and then lifted him up and carried him into the craft. There, he was placed on some kind of cot, and what he remembers is that he was carried out again and placed where they had first picked him up. Suddenly, the craft turned on its side and flew out over the lake and disappeared with a loud bang. Shortly afterwards, a similar craft came and made the same maneuver over the lake. Bo also noticed that the craft left a burn mark in the grass where it had been standing. A dazed Bo went home and showed his mother his shirt, which was torn and bloody where the projectile had hit him. Soon, Bo was telling his mother about what he had experienced, who also followed him outside to look at the grass, which was burnt in a circular shape. On another occasion, he was at a barn on a neighboring farm when a saucer landed. He became frightened and hid in the barn. Soon he saw a female figure standing outside the saucer, but when he heard the figure say that there was nothing to be afraid of, he left his hiding place. She looked much like a human, but shorter and dressed in a leather uniform with a belt and an emblem on her left breast. The woman told him that she could converse in Swedish, but that it would sound a bit strange. She introduced herself by name and told him about her home planet. But these are details that Bo says he no longer remembers. The woman asked Bo if he had any berry bushes. He started walking towards his neighbor's house to show her one. When she followed him, he noticed that she did not walk as humans, but hovered with her feet slightly above the ground. They then started walking towards the place where the craft had stood when Bo first met the aliens. She told him that on that occasion, the craft had flown into a spruce tree and had landed to carry out repairs. Bo says that he met the same woman on 3 occasions that summer and that they walked around for hours talking, but that his memories of these encounters are rather vague. The following summer, the meetings with the female continued. On one occasion, when they passed the potato field, the woman asked if she could take potatoes. Bo said yes. Shortly thereafter, his stepfather became very upset when he saw an oblong pointed footprint in the potato field. Bo tells of another occasion when the craft had once again landed in the pasture at his parents' home, and when the craft was about to take off, he was asked to step back and keep his arms and head down. Bo says he became paralyzed as the craft rose and could not move his head until it left. He also saw that his boots had been burned, and his mother threw them away so that his stepfather would not see them. After this time, there were also 4 prints in the grass from some kind of landing gear. The woman had later asked Bo to cover these tracks by dragging a shovel behind him. Before the woman left this time, she said that the time a craft had crashed into a spruce tree, the crew had hidden parts of the craft in the heap of rocks next to it. The woman gave Bo the task of retrieving these and burying them. He did as she said, but intentionally left one of the pieces under the rocks. The woman had also given him an instrument that looked like a pen so that he could communicate with her. He first hid the instrument in one of the barns, but later threw it into a well because he was afraid of it. Bo's contact with the aliens ended after he was told to go to an area with power lines. He was told to come by himself. However, he took a friend with him and no aliens showed up. When the Swedish UFO organization spoke to Bo's mother, she confirmed the burnt boots, the burnt circle in the grass, the bloody shirt, and that Bo at the time had told her about his encounters with aliens. The same organization has conducted searches where Bo says he dug and hid parts of the craft and the rubble in which the aliens first had placed them, with no results. Finally, Bo said that he had been asked if he wanted to accompany the woman to her home planet, as he would be better off there, but he had declined. It is of course impossible to confirm or deny Bo's stories with any certainty. Were they a little boy's escape from reality? Or did he meet aliens there in the Swedish summer idyll sometime in the late 1950s? Thank you for watching Stories Lost, and thanks for great discussion and feedback on the previous episodes.